Good morning, good day, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from today, and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Ways to Lift Supply Chain Productivity with Visible Data. My name is Ben Johnston. I'm the Product Marketing Director for RMG Networks here in North America. And with me today is Kerwin Everson, our Global Practice Leader for Visual Supply Chain Solutions. And we are here today to talk about the challenges to productivity facing today's supply chain leaders. Before we get started today, I'd like to check in with audio and just make sure everyone can hear me. If you can hear me loud and clear, just use the webinar tools over on your right to raise your hand and check in with me. And I'll take a look here. I see some hands raising there. See give folks a few more seconds here to raise their hand. Okay, looks good. You know, during the webinar, we want to encourage you to use the question tool to send questions to us. We will be answering those at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. If we can't get to any of the questions during the event, we will email you directly following the event. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's meet our presenter, Kerwin Everson, Global Supply Chain Practice Leader here at RMG Networks. Good morning, Kerwin.
Good morning, Ben. Good morning, everyone out there. Excited to host the webinar today.
Kerwin, I understand you're going to talk with us today about some of the challenges facing today's supply chain leaders and show us a few ways to increase productivity that successful leaders are employing.
That's correct. Really excited about it, and I'm going to try to get things kicked off here and make sure we have passed the baton correctly, and then we'll get started. Let me just put up that monitor. Well, welcome everyone. Yes, I'm excited to be here, and you know what's really kind of interesting, if you'll notice from our screen here, when you let marketing set up your webinar, you become an expert, and the product marketing guy becomes the guru. So then maybe when I grow up, I can be a guru too.
Maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
I can aspire.
I can only aspire. Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining today. We really appreciate your time. I know in the supply chain space, time is very critical. It's quite a cross-section of our attendees today. We have manufacturers, we have distribution centers, transportation companies, and 3PL companies represented. And this webinar, as we've said, is going to be focused on visible data. That is visual business intelligence. So the supply chain is abundant as it relates to data. But from my experience in the supply chain space, many, if not most, environments could be kind of likened to this analogy of going to a sporting event without a scoreboard. And if you can even imagine that for just a second, walking into a huge stadium or arena, and you don't even know who's playing, what's the score, how much time is remaining, how many timeouts are left, etc. You know, that's what we see in a lot of supply chain spaces today. And then again, what good would it be to put up a scoreboard that says, here's how we did last month, or here's how we did last quarter, or even yesterday? So what we hope to do today is to share with you the importance of scoreboards in your supply chain, and most importantly, real-time visual business intelligence. So we know as supply chain leaders, supply chain managers, executives in your space, you face some very unique challenges, regardless of what component or what stage of your enterprise's supply chain that you're operating in. You could be all the way from the raw material provider to the transportation company, to the manufacturer, to the distribution center or warehousing, or the fulfillment center. But the point is that you face some very unique challenges. We're going to start with addressing just a few of those to talk about what we see in the supply chain space, and then how visual solutions, visual business intelligence can address those. The first unique challenge, and not necessarily unique, but certainly expanded upon because of this big gorilla named Amazon, they've kind of set the bar pretty high for all of you in the supply chain space. Amazon has said that their goal, and when I went to their largest distribution center, they told me that their goal is to provide you anything you want delivered tomorrow. And of course, most of you have seen that in the recent months, they've expanded upon that, and now in 30 cities, they like to say they can give you anything you want delivered today. And so the bar is being set higher and higher. I've heard it said that we live in this microwave society. I've got to have everything, and I've got to have it now. I remember my kids, the first time they found out something was going to take 2.5 minutes to cook in the microwave, and how disappointed they were that it was going to take so long. But anyway, today's supply chain executive is faced with lots of challenges. You're asked to do everything. So, you know, am I going to ship direct to store, direct to customer? You've got to calculate and figure out the plant logistics and the plant layout and the distribution center logistics and layout, and how I'm going to perform all that with just-in-time and lean and Six Sigma. So between planning and setting objectives and mitigating your risks, every move has to be calculated. And I think it's much like the rock climber who has to calculate every next move. Ben, at this time, I thought it'd be kind of interesting for us to do a quick poll of the audience and find out how many of you actually use real-time metrics in your supply chain. And Ben has a poll question that he's going to pop up here. It might be that you use what you consider real-time metrics. It might be yesterday's data. But how many of you feel like you use real-time metrics in your supply chain, whether that's on screens or whiteboards or desktops or whatever it might be?
Yeah, that's great, Kerwin. So let's give folks a couple of seconds here to answer. It looks like some answers are coming in. Got about half the audience has answered. We'll give them just a few more seconds here.
Okay, what's it looking like?
Here's what the results look like. So you've got about half who aren't using any kind of visual real-time metrics. Got a few using some desktop dashboards and some large format displays. So a pretty mixed bag there.
Okay, and that's kind of what we find in the space, that they do their best at communicating data. It could be as recent as they have, which again might be last week or yesterday. But what we're going to talk about throughout the rest of the webinar is how to make that data real time so that you can make real time decisions that affect your enterprise and your supply chain. A couple more challenges, and we'll move right into the meat of the webinar. No one's ever heard the statement, you've got to do more with less, right? I know you're all hearing that all the time. And even in the face of rising transportation costs, labor costs, healthcare costs, regulatory and safety issues, you're being asked to save money and produce more. And you're the supply chain expert in charge of controlling costs. And I know you'll appreciate this look at your next challenge that you face with your employees. No one wants to train their employees for their next employer, which very well could be right next door or right down the street. But I love this way to look at it. You know, the question almost rhetorically, what if we invest in our people and they leave? Well, the worst news is you might not invest in them and they stay. And then you have the least valuable employee you could have. So think of those as your challenges. And then let's turn our attention to visual data now, the visual supply chain. And we're going to address just 5 ways. There are many, many more we could have addressed, but ways that can give you this productivity lift that you've been looking for. The first is that visual business intelligence eliminates business silos. We all have those inherent, ingrained silos within our supply chain. One department doesn't communicate with the next. One department upstream or downstream from another doesn't know what's happening or why materials aren't getting here quick enough, or when they get here they're damaged. different divisions, different plants in various locations. You could have silos between the supplier, the manufacturer, and the distribution channel. You could have silos of various different supply chain management software platforms. One great example we saw of this, how a company actually improved their productivity, believe it or not, 20%, was just through communicating visually what was happening from one department to the next. This was a windshield manufacturer that was finding chips in a windshield when it got to a certain department, and all they did was communicate back downstream that, hey, you've got an issue somewhere that's causing a chip in the lower left-hand corner. But they communicated it quicker, faster. Before scrapping hundreds or thousands of windshields, they were scrapping 2 or 3 of them, and they could communicate upstream and downstream about chips or cracks or waves or whatever. And it's an important point to make then that we're going to help you through digital signage and visual metrics to eliminate silos. The second huge one is that visual supply chain utilizes real-time performance management. So I know some of you answered, we use some metrics. You knew they were yesterday's news, but if you're relying on last week's reports or yesterday's results, then our claim is that you're managing in a rear-view mirror. You know, imagine if you have improved your decision-making and you knew exactly where's the operation at this very minute and exactly what has to happen the remainder of the shift to make my goals. My claim is that if you're not looking at real-time data, then you're managing in a rear-view mirror. And I've seen this time and time again, a cork board that I could walk up to, and if I was a picker or a packer in a distribution center, I could find out exactly how I did yesterday. But that picker or packer wants to know, how am I doing at 10:30 this morning, and what do I need to do to make my goal by 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock this afternoon? And that's what real-time performance management can help you with. A third point is that visual performance management improves employee morale. This is huge. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but I thought another poll question, Ben, that you might pose there is, how many of you online today, executives in the supply chain space, use incentive-based pay? And that could be bonuses based on productivity by an individual or even productivity on a team level. Respond and let us know if you use incentive-based pay in your organization.
Yeah, so we've got some questions or some answers coming in here, Kerwin. Let's give them a few seconds here. Okay, it looks like about, we're there, over half the audience has voted, so we'll go ahead and close that poll, share the results here.
This is usually a much smaller number. What are you getting there?
So we got about 40% say their company does offer incentive-based performance plans, and about 44% no, and then we got about 17% who aren't sure.
Okay, all right. Well, what's very interesting here as you think about it, first of all, the employee obviously wants to do a good job. They want the company to do well, but engaging them with real-time information is vital to improving the employee morale. Basically, you're telling them they mean something to you, they make a difference. What was really amazing in one of the distribution centers I was in, they did pay incentive-based pay, and they also allowed the employee to leave their job throughout the day, go over to a terminal, log in to see exactly how I'm doing right now. And they might do this 10 or 15 or 20 times per day. And imagine, by the way, they watched their productivity fall while they stepped away from their job to verify exactly how they were doing. So what the company did was start putting up the scoreboard so that while I'm working, I can determine exactly how I'm doing. And if you are one of those companies that responded, we do pay our employees incentive-based pay, then you've got to provide them a scoreboard. You've got to provide them a scorecard with exactly how they're doing. Fourth point, supply chain digital signage increases efficiency and productivity. So this is pretty typical of what a lot of you see in manufacturing spaces, distribution centers, transportation companies. Data is everywhere. Reports, you know, you go through reams and reams of paper to print out reports. The bottom line is that they're manually updated, usually. And you can have an improvement if you just let the employees know, here's what we're going to measure, and oh, by the way, we're going to do it in real time. I'm sure most of you have heard of the Hawthorne effect. It's the increase in worker productivity that can actually be created, believe it or not, on the psychological stimulus of being just singled out and made to feel important. So what's neat about the Hawthorne effect is it basically concludes that the abilities of a person are imperfect predictors of their job performance. But if you just let them know that they're important and what they're doing is very important, their productivity improves. You get what you measure. You guys know that. You'll see an uptick in the efficiency and the productivity. And think about all the areas where you need to see those upticks, so to speak, in the areas of safety, quality, accuracy, orders complete, parts per minute, picks per hour. Whatever measurement is important to you, that's what you want to measure, and more importantly, that's what you'll see results in as you put those up in real time. One really neat example we saw was at a clothing retailer distribution center. We were shooting some video there, and there was a particular worker that saw us shooting the video, and when that particular worker was in the camera, they appeared to go into hyperspeed, and they started working twice as fast as they were before the camera showed up. And oh, by the way, when the camera got on by, they did slow down back to normal speed, but the point was still made that this was like the Hawthorne effect I just mentioned, and the fact that I can increase efficiency and productivity just through scoreboards or letting the employees know that we're aware and that we care and that we're monitoring their performance. The fifth point here, and one we'll spend just a bit longer on, is that visual data, when prominently displayed in real time, will raise your profit margin. So everything we've shared up to now can actually translate into dollars and cents. It can translate to your bottom line. If you eliminate silos and you have better communication between departments, you're going to improve your bottom line. If you have employee engagement that is superior to anyone, and if you can improve your employee morale, if you improve those metrics in efficiency and productivity, again, whether those don't have to be just we're going to produce more and we're going to produce it faster, but we're going to do it in a safer way. We're going to do it with higher quality, with better accuracy. Those are all ways that impact your bottom line in dollars and cents. We've seen the ROI examples here just through the roof, and we'll be happy to share those with you. You're going to get copies of this presentation, copies of our white paper, and more importantly, we'd love to sit down with you in a consultative way and talk about some of the ROI that we've seen within some of the leading companies in this space. We had one company that fully started producing 20% more per day. That was the windshield company I mentioned. They were producing 7,000 windshields a day, and they felt just through visual business intelligence, they upped that to 8,400 windshields per day, 20% improvement. We have a consultant study that talks about through what they called intervention, which was scoreboards everywhere. They saw improvements in departments from 5 to 15% in picking, packing, and shipping in a large distribution center. Happens to be located in Dallas, Texas. And one large box retailer, this was the most amazing statistic that anyone has shared with me personally. Through various process improvements, they had already found that a 1% uptick in their 20 distribution centers meant $55 million to their bottom line. They put this visual business intelligence into 2 of those DCs, and he is actually calculating that he will get another 1% when they're able to roll that out into all 20 distribution centers. So $55 million. And believe me, the expense to do that is a fraction of that cost, or of that savings, rather. So as we kind of start to wrap up here, we have 8 or 10 minutes. We'll have some time at the end for questions and answers and some digging into anything you'd like to ask. But as brilliant as one of my heroes was, I love the simplicity of this idea. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Well, if I can't boil this entire webinar down into its simplest form, then I claim that I really don't know much about this space. And what I claim is the simplest form is this right here, that you can use data visualization to keep score and to lift your supply chain productivity. You know, I couldn't emphasize enough that what you have to do, and what you see on those big screens in the back of that warehouse there, is that you have to make sure that your data visualization includes real-time metrics. If that's yesterday's news or last week's news, people are going to get tired of looking at it. If you've got the weather report from 3 days ago, what good's that going to do them, right? So if you're putting up old data, last week's information, then again, you're managing in a rear-view mirror. And we want to help you understand how to do this in real time, and that's what our consultative practices can help you with. So what we really can, you know, again, back to what most of you see in your supply chain environment. You see a lot of paper reports, thumbtacked up, whiteboards, even chalkboards, but folks who have to manually update those, maybe every hour, maybe in the morning, in the afternoon. But what we'd like to propose is that you can go from this to something similar to this. This is something that we're working on with a large global company, and this is actually going to be in their command center. If you look at the far left there, from the upper corner where it says TV feed down to the lower left, that's 3 LCDs high, 355-inch LCDs high by 5 LCDs wide. And that's a 15-screen video wall. And what it's meant to represent is, on the map in the center, those are all the manufacturing plants of this large global company. And those 5 square boxes or rectangular boxes are their 5 large distribution centers. And on this video wall, this command center, we're measuring everything from shipments on time, productivity of each manufacturing facility, products that have been recalled. Where are those products? Are they on a truck? Are they in a distribution center? Or have they been actually delivered to a customer? We're actually monitoring freezer temperatures on the right there. Those little blue squares, it might be tough to see on your monitor. I don't know what size you've got it expanded to, but those are little ice cubes that could be melting and showing that we've got a freezer problem in a particular distribution center. They're showing product diversions. We got a product diverted to the wrong place. But the bottom line is we're tying into one of the huge supply chain consulting companies who has warehouse management, labor management, and transportation management tools. We're tying in to get that real-time data and populate it on a large command center. Other ways we've seen it used in some of our customers, upper right is just a manufacturing plant that has every single line. We know what we're manufacturing, where we're at the up to the minute on what is our production. Are we behind goal, ahead of goal? We have companies using it to post gauges or meters or dials or charts. The employee communication information you see up there, weather and the like. But here you see them, they're actually in underground mines. We have them in underground salt mines, potash, phosphate mines. It's a unique ability to present the data. It can be on a scoreboard on a wall. It can be on a desktop. It can be on a mobile device. Once the data is captured, the endpoints are innumerable of where we can put them and how we can help you in managing your space. So Ben, I wanted to kind of save the last 5 minutes here for any questions that might have come in during the webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Kerwin. Those are some great points and examples there. We do have a few minutes here. We've got a couple questions lined up here, and if we don't get to your question, we will email you directly after the event. And go ahead, if you've got additional questions on your mind, go ahead and send them in through the webinar here before it ends. But the first question says, this attendee wrote, our company uses an ERP system that is not listed on the slide. Do you support other systems? So I don't know if you want to go back to that slide, Kerwin.
Okay, but, yeah, that's a good
about data integrations there.
Right, very good question. So yeah, this wasn't meant to be an exhaustive list at all. It is some of the ERP, some of the SAP systems, some of the warehouse management systems that we see, even all the way down to the manufacturing line, the PLCs, the programmable language controllers on the assembly line. Down at the very bottom, Wonderware being kind of a middleware that can aggregate that data. But what our system does is has various different kinds of data collectors. And so regardless of the ERP or SAP or warehouse management system you have, we have a data collector that can help get to that data and then bring it into our central enterprise software, aggregate that data, and then set thresholds on it and help communicate. So, no, that's a good question. This wasn't at all an exhaustive list. It's just a partial list of some of the interfaces that we've developed and worked with.
No, that's a great answer, Kerwin. So the next question, another attendee wrote in here, can we get some idea of cost and time to implement? Okay, yeah, another good question. And you know, unfortunately, I might have to answer that. It depends, but you know, we certainly enter into a consultative relationship with you as the customer, and you got to understand that it could be something as simple as 1 or 2 or 5 screens, all the way to a 3x5 video wall. The best thing I can say about the cost and the time to implement is that the ROI is what we really want to help you with. We don't want you to spend money that we're not going to help you save in your enterprise and save within your supply chain. So you're going to be able to produce more and be more effective and efficient, and therefore the ROI is in months, certainly not years for these systems. And I've seen them go from, you know, $50,000 to, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it depends on the organization and you know, the expanse of your supply chain, and we'll work with you on that. But it's a good question. Great, thanks, Kerwin. So one last question here, and then I'm going to take control from you here while you answer it. This attendee wrote in and said, what do these visualizations look like? I think you kind of touched on that some with the example, but maybe you can give a couple other examples here. Yeah, we really, okay, good, and we really did. You know, our creative design team is happy to work with you. It's almost like a blank canvas for them, so it can be as graphic as you want it. It could be just, you know, almost like an extension of your Excel spreadsheet. We can make it just numbers that are green, yellow, and red. We've seen stoplights, green, yellow, red. We can make it, you know, a truck being loaded, an ice cube being melted, as you saw on the screen a minute ago. So it's as elaborate as you want it to be, and or as simple as you want us to help you make it. So it's a blank canvas is what I'd say there, and we'll help you design it to fit your space. Great. Well, Kerwin, I think we're about out of time here. Thank you very much for your time, Kerwin, and thanks everyone who attended today for your time as we talk through this exciting topic of how to lift supply chain productivity with visual data. Attendees, you will receive an email with links to download the webinar presentation slides and our real-time performance management white paper. And if we didn't get to your question during Q&A, we will follow up directly with you. You know, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook or Twitter or at our blog, which you can get to from our website, and keep an eye out for additional webinars this spring. And if you've got more specific questions or want to learn more about how visual supply chain solutions can help your business, please contact us directly. Well, Kerwin, thanks a lot for your time. Well, thank you, and I hope to hear from a bunch of you. My email's right there, and I'll certainly get the right RMG player involved to consult with you. Great. Well, this concludes today's webinar, everyone. Have a great day. Goodbye.